Top 10 Fascinating Facts About the Teaching of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 39. Did you know that "love your neighbor as yourself" is a direct command from Jesus that transcends cultures and breaks down social barriers? Discover these fascinating facts about the lesson that redefines love for others as a universal symbol of peace and justice. Number 10. Reaffirms ethics. The phrase, "love your neighbor as yourself," found in Matthew, chapter 22, verse 39, is not a new concept introduced by Jesus but rather reaffirms an established ethic in Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 18. "Do not take revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself." By bringing this precept to the forefront, Jesus amplifies its importance in the context of human coexistence. The repetition and emphasis of this teaching highlight its relevance in Jewish tradition and its intention to integrate kindness into every action. Jesus emphasizes that religious norms should not be soulless rules but should translate into humane treatment based on respect and empathy. In this way, it becomes a powerful reminder that morality isn't just a set of abstract rules. Rather, it reflects how people should relate to one another, promoting an environment where the well-being of others is paramount. Number 9. Universality. Although Jesus initially addressed a predominantly Jewish audience, the teaching of Matthew chapter 22, verse 39 transcends cultural, religious, and ethnic boundaries. The message, "love your neighbor as yourself," promotes a universal principle encompassing all human beings, regardless of race, creed, social status, or nationality. This openness reflects an inclusive vision that breaks down the barriers humans tend to erect among themselves. The idea of loving one's neighbor is not limited to people who share the same cultural background but extends to everyone, despite their differences. In times of social exclusion, this universal principle opened a new path toward mutual understanding and respect. The teaching encourages the values of kindness and empathy to guide interactions, fostering global solidarity where caring for others is not conditioned by superficial labels. Number 8. Complement to the first commandment. Jesus placed the commandment, "love your neighbor as yourself," as the second most important, immediately after, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." In this way, he complements it by clarifying that loving God and loving one's neighbor are inextricably linked and cannot exist without each other. The relationship between these commandments underscores a spiritual connection between the divine and the human, where loving God necessarily means loving those who are part of His creation. This gives a more comprehensive approach to religious ethics, integrating the vertical, love of God, with the horizontal, love of others, and developing a deeper concept of devotion. By emphasizing this relationship, Jesus redefines spirituality, not as an isolated act of worshiping God, but as an experience that should be reflected in how people treat their fellow human beings. Genuine love for others is then a direct expression of love for God, uniting the spiritual and everyday worlds. Number 7. Answers questions. Jesus' teaching in Matthew, chapter 22, verse 39 was given in response to a question posed by a Pharisee trying to test him. The Pharisee asked which commandment was the greatest in the law, perhaps seeking to trap Jesus in an answer that could be debated. However, the response he gave was direct and clear, providing concise guidance for human coexistence. Love God and love your neighbor. Jesus' response not only demonstrated a deep understanding of the law but also his ability to distill the spirit of the teachings into a practical, applicable guideline. In a context where legal complexities could become a burden for many, Jesus simplified the path, emphasizing two fundamental commandments that, when followed, would fulfill the purpose of all others. Thus, his response strips morality of unnecessary complexities and presents it as a clear path to a meaningful life. This approach challenged the expectations of those present, refocusing the conversation on what truly matters: love in its purest form. Number 6. Symbol of the Christian community. The commandment, "Love your neighbor as yourself," has become a symbol of the ideal expected of the Christian community. Jesus established it as a behavioral model for those who choose to follow him, defining relationships between members as unified, respectful, and compassionate. In the context of the early Christian communities, this commandment fostered an environment where love and help for others became fundamental pillars. Early Christians shared goods, helped those in need, and treated each other with the same kindness and understanding that they expected to receive. This set them apart from the surrounding society, where socioeconomic divisions ran deep. This principle remains relevant today, challenging modern communities to reflect this spirit of unity and mutual support. Although the world has changed drastically since Jesus' time, the need to unite in compassion, overcoming differences to build a peaceful and supportive environment, remains essential for authentic coexistence. Number 5. Involves self-worth. The phrase, "as yourself," in the commandment, "Love your neighbor as yourself," is crucial because it implies the importance of self-worth. Jesus indicates that love for others must stem from healthy self-esteem and a positive appreciation of oneself. Without this self-recognition and acceptance, it's challenging to give others genuine affection. In a context where many people struggle with self-criticism or lack of confidence, Jesus establishes the importance of developing a balanced sense of self-love. This teaching does not imply selfishness or narcissism, but rather understanding that each person has intrinsic worth as God's creation. Caring for oneself enables one to be in a better position to care for others. When people are aware of their own value and purpose, they can offer empathy, support, and understanding to others. This interconnection between self-love and love for others creates a positive cycle of compassion that extends to the community and fosters deeper and more meaningful relationships. Number 4. Social challenge. The teaching, "Love your neighbor as yourself," represents a direct challenge to social structures that promote discrimination, hatred, and exclusion. By calling for fair and equitable treatment for all, Jesus advocates for a society where differences are not a source of division but of mutual enrichment. This challenges the prejudices that prevail in many environments, proposing a radical change in perspective. In the context of the Roman Empire, where social and economic hierarchies were well established, Jesus' message proposed coexistence based on the intrinsic equality of all people. Furthermore, this included those considered unclean or sinners, according to the norms of the time, thus extending the concept of a neighbor to previously excluded groups. Applied to contemporary society, this teaching challenges ideologies that perpetuate racism, xenophobia, classism, and other forms of marginalization. It invites building bridges instead of walls, encouraging people to look beyond external differences and find the value and shared humanity in each individual. Number 3. Conflict prevention. The practice of the commandment, "Love your neighbor as yourself," promotes conflict prevention by encouraging empathy and the pursuit of the common good. Teaching people to see others as extensions of themselves fosters the understanding that the well-being of others is intrinsically tied to one's own. This reduces tensions that often arise from ideological, cultural, and social differences. This preventive approach to conflicts is particularly relevant in an era marked by deep divisions. When people put themselves in others' shoes and seek mutual understanding, the foundation is laid for peacefully resolving differences. Moreover, the willingness to help those in need tends to build strong bonds of community support, contributing to a more cohesive society. In an increasingly interconnected world, this commandment remains a timeless principle for peaceful coexistence. By understanding that our actions toward others reflect how we value ourselves, the commandment becomes a beacon that guides human relationships toward tolerance and respect. Number 2. Synthesis of the law. Jesus defined "love your neighbor as yourself" as a synthesis of the entire law and the prophets. By emphasizing that this commandment summarizes the fundamental principles of morality and justice that God requires, Jesus provides a solid foundation for his followers to understand the purpose behind each commandment. In the Jewish context, the law was composed of numerous precepts regulating all aspects of daily life, from food to interpersonal relationships. Jesus condenses this compendium into a central principle, demonstrating that the true essence of the law lies not in mechanical adherence to norms but in the genuine desire to seek the good of others. This direct approach simplifies the understanding and application of religious ethics, allowing even those less versed in the law's details to live according to its spirit. Acting with love and respect toward others honors all the moral precepts that Jesus intended to highlight. This synthesis makes the commandment a guiding principle that crosses the borders of religion to encompass life in its entirety. Number 1. Direct command from Jesus. The teaching, "Love your neighbor as yourself," was not a simple suggestion but a direct command from Jesus. When asked about the most important commandment, Jesus made it clear that this should be considered in order for his followers to become active agents of love and peace in the world. This direct command highlights the urgency and importance Jesus assigned to building a society based on love for others. It is not an optional ideal but a fundamental calling for all who wish to live by his teachings. Jesus not only expressed it in words but exemplified it through his actions, showing compassion to the sick, marginalized, and sinners, thus defying the social expectations of his time. By identifying this commandment as the second most important after loving God, Jesus set a clear priority for how humans should interact with one another. His command not only requires conscious action but seeks a profound change in attitude toward others, promoting empathy, compassion, and generosity in every facet of everyday life.